Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. J.L. Scott Fishing and Eats. It is Hot Take Thursday. Hot Take, I am back with a Hot Take Thursday, fresh off a trip to the New River Valley in Virginia for a Smalley Chaser River Bassin event. Had a great time. Guys smashed them. Big shout out, Power Queen battery given away. Big shout out to Broken Twig Landing Nets and Yak Rods for prizes for the first, second, and third place chaser in that event. But it's Hot Take, and my Hot Take today, I've been thinking about this for a couple days now because I had a 5-hour drive back from the New River, okay? And all I did was listen to podcasts. That is all I did the entire way home, was listen to various different podcasts, different perspectives, professional anglers, kayak bass anglers, fly fishermen, just all different topics across the board. And there's so much stuff dropped last week. Controversies again, could have been the James Watson thing, could be, which is all over YouTube, could be the Upshaw Brian New dust up all over. Kudos to Andrew Upshaw with like 65, 70,000 views just by doing a basic video responding to Brian New. Who knew, right? That's the beauty of YouTube these days. Everybody wants to tune in and listen. And I certainly did for 5 hours. And one of the things that came up and listening to different things and what I realized and just rolling through different, especially kayak community events and just different takes. A lot of kayak community events got canceled already this year because of the weather. We have rising water pretty much everywhere, and every river system in the Mid-Atlantic right now is way, way up. I mean, the Monocacy River's at 15 feet, Potomac River, Juniata, Susquehanna, they're all friggin' outside their banks. And so a lot of events got canceled. So there was a lot more stuff over the weekend to just kind of like take on and try to follow up and catch up with on the ride home to see what happened in other events and stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of them got canceled. But what I'm going to talk about is Bassmaster. Okay, B.A.S.S. B.A.S.S. Okay, as an organization. And as everybody knows who's watched this channel, I've been a big supporter of Bass. I have no problem with Bass. You know, you can love an organization, be a member of an organization, and still have opinions, okay? I don't know why we've gotten into this place, and probably in everything these days, where everything has to be tribal. You have to agree with me or you're a clown. You have to agree with me or you're a hater. You have to agree with me. I just don't buy into all that stuff. I love Bass. I think Bass is a great organization. You know, but there are issues, right? There are issues with Bass, just like there are any other organization. There are issues in KBF, like every other organization. These people that sit up on the sidelines and kind of point fingers and all that crap all the time are people who haven't built anything. They are people who have not built anything. They haven't built a small business. They haven't built a nonprofit. They haven't built an organization. They haven't done, and so I always take that with a grain of salt, okay? As someone who's done those things and has worked with those organizations, okay, in my personal life, to understand, like, you know, things aren't perfect, like the NPFL, okay, like people like throwing out like, oh, well, okay, it's the beginning. There are going to be hiccups. There are going to be these things. Now, we don't come to expect these things from something like a Bass. And we certainly don't, you know, I should say that we don't come to expect these things for something like MLF after taking over FLW, because now they've got some years under their belt. These problems should be behind them, but they're not. And then Bass has been around my entire life, obviously, and so we don't expect things. We don't expect things to like go wrong, right? In Bass, for there to be like incidences, you know, that have kind of happened. Although a lot less than MLF, and with all due respect. But Bassmaster Kayak Series opens. What's really the real future of kayak bass fishing in the United States? Right? When you take a look at the sport post-COVID, what's the direction that it's taking? And I think that's a conversation that a lot of people who have more depth of knowledge in kayak bass fishing than I do, experts in the field. You could throw out names left and right, because there's probably about a half a dozen or a dozen people that I would put up, that I'd pay money to go see in a summit, talk about issues within kayak bass fishing, because I think it's needed. Okay? Because what's happening is, and I listened to a few podcasts on the way home, and I'm kind of moving towards the camp of belief that kayak bass fishing is nothing more than boater light. That's all. That's the direction that Bassmaster is taking kayak fishing in America, is nothing more than boater light. Now, a lot of people are going to throw back and criticize that. But I want to reiterate something that I've said in previous videos. If you notice, while it's always celebrated when a professional Bass Elite Series angler dabbles in the kayak bass fishing kayak open series, it's always great, okay? But nobody ever takes the questions a little deeper. Again, they're not going and fishing a KBF event. They're not going to fish a Hobie event necessarily. Some I think have. They're going to fish an inside their own bass organization event. And there are reasons why they do that. Okay? Independent of just thinking it's pretty cool to get in a kayak. It's a business decision. Okay? It is. I don't care what anybody says. Because you can hear people talking about it. Right? And you can hear Bass trying to get, Elite Series anglers and other anglers into the kayak side to then draw attention and marketing, because Bass is putting money into kayak fishing, okay? It's just good business. It's not a slight or a slap. It's just good business, okay? And then if they perform well, it draws a lot of press. You saw that at 10 Killer. You saw that, so Bass has done a great job. Again, I'm not a hater of Bass, okay? But the direction that Bass is taking kayak bass fishing is not aligned with a lot of people, including myself, anymore. After 4 years, okay? Bass has determined that what they value, okay? And I'm a firm believer in life and in everything. When someone shows you who they are, that's who they are, okay? Not the apologies that come afterward, not the explain-aways. We see that a lot. When someone shows you who they are, that's who they are. Bass has an opportunity in 2025 to right what I consider to be a disparity in its scheduling. When an organization drafts a schedule, it shows to potential participants what it values. Bass does not value river bassing. Flat out. It doesn't. People be like, oh, Jay, you're a hater. No, I'm not a hater. It's the facts. It's the facts. Okay? It just is. I'm not trying to channel an inner Todd Castledine. Okay? But it's the facts. It just is. It doesn't mean that we don't love Bassmaster or we don't like Steve. We like the people who run in. Of course we do. But the reality of it is the schedule signals what you value. And in the last 4 years, what has Bassmaster valued? They have not valued the river basser, which is ironic because one just won the Bassmaster Kayak Championship on 10 Killer, Drew Gregory. Okay? The man, the myth, the legend that for some reason gets ostracized a lot by a lot of podcasts and a lot of other things because he does it his own way, just like river bassers do. River rats. We do it our own way. Okay? And so rules had gotten drafted in various organizations. I had someone tell me one time there actually is a Drew Gregory rule, like because of Drew Gregory's exploits and how he manages to use rivers to his advantage in competitions and understanding and all these things and access and launches and all of these things. Okay, so rules were drafted to penalize river bassing. Okay, they were. All right. And then you had a river basser win the Bassmaster Championship, which I think is kind of awesome. So kudos to Drew Gregory. But it doesn't change the fact that, look, since 2020, Bassmaster has scheduled roughly 21 or 22 lake events and 3 river events. Think about that. And you're going to tell me that they value anglers who fish river bass from a kayak. Now let's break something really down. What the hell is the traditional foundation origin? I'm all about evolution. I'm all about progress. Okay, so don't go there. Okay, but I also understand it's all about the buck, the mighty buck. Okay, And I get it. Permitting, trust me, running a series, I understand. I understand the permitting aspect, the number of boaters, the number of kayakers, and all that stuff that you got to do, and where the money comes from. And, well, Jay, those places that have those lakes, they're the ones paying the money. And I get all that, okay? But the reality of it is only Mississippi River from La Crosse and Susquehanna have been scheduled by Bassmaster in 4 years. They've been to La Crosse, I think, twice or 3 times. Yeah, I think they've been to La Crosse 3 times, and they've been to Susquehanna once. So 2 river systems. Coincidentally, both pretty much smallmouth. So again, you can do the disparity between smallmouth and largemouth. We all know, I get it, largemouth is the predominantly chased black bass species in America, so I don't have any issue with that, okay? Thank you. Kudos, they scheduled smallmouth fisheries. But that's it, unless you count the Upper Bay, which is in my neck of the woods. And most people in these parts don't consider Northeast and other rivers that feed the Upper Bay being a river event. We don't, but even if you threw that into the mix and said, okay, 3. Where are all the other events happening? All the other events are happening on big boat lakes. That's where they're happening. And that could be a product of B.A.S.S, the organization, because Hobie has done the same thing. But I would say Hobie has a lot more balance in the disparity between lakes and rivers. So I will give Hobie credit for that. Okay? Because a lot of people think Bassmaster has overtaken Hobie now. Hobie, I think, has an event coming up this weekend down on a lake, Lake Norman, North Carolina. Spotted Bass Fest. Has like 100 anglers registered up. That's pretty much going to be, I think that's pretty much going to be their norm now. 100 anglers. 100 to 125 now. Okay? Which is lower than what it's historically been. And I think B.A.S.S has pulled a lot of people, certainly from KBF, certainly from Hobie over to B.A.S S, and kudos to them. I mean, again, we're not talking about how an organization is run or the people involved in the organization. They're top-notch people. It's, what do you value? Okay, that's the question that people are asking. I know I just got done with a whole bunch of river bassers, and none of them have ever fished a Bassmaster event, and probably never will. Okay, unless it's maybe Susquehanna, which is I'm trying to push them to fish Susquehanna because it's smallmouth, which is what we fish for, and it's a river, and we got to put our pocket lunch money where our mouth is, and get into some of these events to encourage bass to move in the direction to balance out the disparity. I understand why the disparity exists. So I know a lot of people send me messages that I'm a hater, and it's not. It's just 21-22 to 3. Like, come on, guys. Like, this is the reality, okay? And your travel time for people who live where I live. Again, that was the number one thing I talked about with people was like, Jay, I don't want to drive 10, 15 hours to freaking fish an event where the same guy wins all the time. Why do the same people tend to finish in the top 10? Year after year after year. The more experience that you get on a body of water, I do not care what it is, the more apt you are to be competitive. And when someone's new, just starting out, and they're going to Chickamauga, they're going to Lake Fork, they're going to Harris Chain, Pickwick, Smith Lake, Gunnersville. I mean, the list goes on and on. Eufaula, okay? This year, Lake Murray again, okay? They're going back to Gunnersville, okay? National championship for KBF right now is on Gunnersville and Wheeler. It's the same places. These people that have been involved with Bass or Hobie or KBF for 5, 6, 7 years combined with their careers, they fish these places dozens of times, okay? So that puts them at a competitive advantage. I don't care what anybody says. It just does. If you go back to the same places year after year, the same people finish in the top 10. Look at the history of Bassmaster and Hobie over the course of their history. You'll see the same names at the top. Are they great sticks? Yes. Are they some of the best anglers? I don't care in a kayak or in a boat. Yes. But the reality of it is they have gotten years and years of experience. And then what we see is when they go to a brand new place, oftentimes you see brand new names at the top of the leaderboard. You saw that at the New River for Hobie, didn't you? Place I just came from, okay? Because if you haven't fished that beast, okay, ever, and you go there, okay, to me, that demonstrates someone's real salt in the sport, okay? Then if you're going to Guntersville 6 times a year in 3 different series and a local series and a state series for kayak, okay, Bass Nation, okay, and all that, you have such familiarity with that body of water that I expect you to finish in the top 10, to be honest. And if you don't, I would be surprised. But it's no longer celebrated. People just expect 5 or 6 of these guys to always finish in the top 10, and when they do, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, he won another one. Like, because they know, oh great. And then people look back and go, man, I'm going to drop $250, and I mean, I got to travel 10, 12 hours to drop $250 to have the same people win every time. That is the number one complaint that you hear from people. People don't want to be honest about it. I'm not a hater because I'm communicating to everybody on my YouTube channel what people are saying, okay? Again, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with bass, okay? It's an observation. It's not a criticism. It's an observation that that's the sentiment out there. The same sentiment that existed within the last year and a half about KBF, okay, that was built up and pushed in narratives, in groups, to thousands and thousands of people with a kayak, okay? Payments weren't happening, different things weren't all that stuff. They basically took a hit. I mean, it was a hit job on the KBF brand. Some rightfully so in terms of facts. Payouts were late, were longer than what was expected for anglers fishing events in KBF, and they took a hit to their brand and are rebuilding, okay? But the same thing is, again, facts are facts, okay? Bass doesn't value river bass and anglers. Guys who bought a kayak, why did they buy the kayak, okay? Now, people always make the arguments that like, why don't you just get a boat? Why don't you just get a big boy boat, okay? To me, this fuels that argument. If you're going to fish places like Fork, okay, and Erie, okay, and big water, it actually promotes the big kayak platform development and innovation, right? Which is not bad. It's not bad. A lot of new kayaks are made for big water. Because if the events are going to schedule that and they're going to draw 100 or 200 anglers, and those people are paying money in it, those are likely the base, the demographic that someone like, a NAR, someone like, a big Hobie platform are going after. They're not going after me in skinny water and 2 feet of water. Average depth last year in the upper Potomac was 2.3 feet. They're not going after me, okay? They're going after these competitive anglers, and I totally get that, and that's where the direction of the innovation is going in the industry. Electronics, who's pushing the electronics? Well, Bass is pushing the electronics, guys. Okay? How is Bass pushing the electronics, Jay? Look at their schedule. Their schedule sets up in the beginning of the season, the Elite Series, for forward-facing sonar. Because they have a vested interest in the success of forward-facing sonar. They do. Kayak angling. Why are so many kayak anglers going out and buying forward-facing sonar, adding second graphs to their kayaks? Look at the schedule. Okay? Just look at these just look at the example set. The last 4 years. Okay? Lake Fork, Chickamauga, Guntersville, Eufaula, okay? Clear Lake, even back in 2020. Hartwell, Possum Kingdom, Texas, twice. Chickamauga, Murray, all these places set up for forward-facing sonar, not rivers. River bassers don't really need forward-facing sonar if you're fishing in 2-3 feet of water all the time. If you're taking that, remember the original thing was, let's take our kayaks to places that boaters can't go. That used to be the whole point and value of being in a kayak. Not rigging your kayak with $7,000 worth of electronics and trolling motors and anchors and bow and stern and all that. That was never the initial. I get it. Progress. Jack. I know I'm going to get the hate. There's nothing wrong with putting all that on your boat. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy a boat. Okay? You can do whatever you want. It's America. It's America. Do whatever you want. But I'm just saying the essence of kayaking is being lost. And what's happening is the essence of kayaking, of river bassin, of why we all got into kayaking in the first place, in my opinion, is being lost, and it's being turned and twisted into something it was never meant to be. And that's the tournament mentality. The tournament purists want to govern the community. Okay? Because everyone's out chasing that check. They're chasing that beat that chest. They're chasing that next logo on their chest. Just because as kids growing up, they saw the Bassmaster stage, Bassmaster anglers. We all looked up to those anglers. I have my favorites that I've looked up to. Okay, fortunately, some of them are still with us. Some of them are not. Okay, I totally get it. But we're totally twisting what the essence, in my opinion, of what kayak fishing used to be. And now it is becoming just boater light. It is becoming that. We're basically mirroring what the boaters are doing. We did it with larger boats. We did it with forward-facing sonar. We've done it with schedules. We schedule the same lakes that Bass and MLF schedule. Instead of scheduling the places they could never go. Right? Scheduling rivers and lakes, even smaller lakes, that Bass could never go, okay, and would never go. But because of business relationships, because of ties, this is the direction that kayak bass fishing on the national level is going, okay? And it's just going to be a matter of one person and funding, okay, who decides to take things in a different direction, okay? And you know what, this isn't, it's great, 200 anglers, it's great. We're growing the sport. I don't know if you really are. I don't. You look at kayak sales now, you look at the industry now, everything's down. Obviously, after the meteoric rise of COVID and coming back down. Talk to tackle shops, sales are down. You talk to people, less people now, believe it or not. Part of it could be due to the weather. But if you talk to rangers, if you talk to conservation officers, it's actually starting to come back down again from COVID in terms of the number of people they're interacting with, the number of launch fees, the revenue generated from localities in terms of launch fees that you have to pay to launch your boat. That stuff's coming down now, okay? And so eventually we're going to get into this thing. So when I got screenshot of a shot that I guess Steve from Bassmaster put out about where would you guys like to see, I think is the essence of Bassmaster go next year. I got to tell you, I wish Bassmaster had more events. And there was a less disparity between lakes and rivers. That's it. Even if you just scheduled one more river next year, Steve, I'd be happy. I mean, I'm a supporter of Bass anyway. I just think that we can't continue to really pull everybody in. There's so many people that I meet all the time, just met this weekend, that only fish rivers. They don't fish lakes. Okay? And it's like, that's what's keeping them from really going to the next level. That's why local series are popping up left and right. There is growth there. There's definitely growth there because the little series are looking at the national and saying, we want to offer something to people that just don't want to pay that much money or just don't want to travel that far to go. And we can try and do the same thing, locally within 2 hours of the demographic. And that's probably what's going to continue to happen if these series continue to do this. Everybody, it's just one of those things where, most people don't like to see the same team win all the time. Okay? Most people don't like to see the same person win all the time. Okay? I mean, unless you're like some purist diehard fan of somebody. Okay? And so that ends up being eventually a negative factor in growth of a sport or an industry is guys on top, why are some of these people on top? Is it because they're, great anglers? Yeah. Okay. But it's also because they're actually fishing in familiar waters. The launches are the same. They've done their homework year after year after year. They don't have to think about where they're going to launch from or what float they're going to do. They know it. They know where the fish have been for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. They know where to go get them. They know where to target them. and then the technology catches up with them. So now they have more advanced technology. Now they have motors for Hobie to get there faster. Now they have forward-facing sonar to help them target them. They already know where they are, basically, and then it just comes down to catching. And for those people who don't think that that's an unfair advantage, I don't know what to tell you. Because it is. It is. Same thing happened in racing when a guy grew up on the same short track, running the short track in Richmond his entire freaking life, and then goes into the NASCAR, and guess what? He wins at Richmond and Bristol and Martinsville almost all the time, right? Or finishes in the top 5. Why? Familiarity. Then he goes to a road course. Then he goes somewhere else. He goes to Dover. He goes to the road course. He goes down south to Daytona, okay? Darlington, okay? And Skunks, right? That's why, okay? So Bass got to be very careful, in my opinion. I understand money is money, and money talks, okay? Nowhere else in the fishing industry does money talk, okay? When a city wants to pop up some thousands of dollars to have have an event there. But Bass needs to be careful and to keep going to the same places, and because this is what happens, is the criticism out there, and the same people. And oftentimes it's the same people, we're back again this year, and how many newer podcasts are there? How many newer stuff are there on YouTube? How many newer fishing channels are there on YouTube, in the kayak space, right? That's what I gauge it at. It's people that have been around for any number of years, 3, 4, 5 years, that I call the gatekeepers, okay? They're part of this. They are. They giveth, they taketh away. That's the power of an audience. And so people need to be aware of that. Those are the people who need to be the problem is they're also anglers. See? They're also competitors on these series. So where you're getting your adjunct objectivity from isn't from the mainstream podcast. It never has been. That's why people have come after me, because I am not part of that, aristocracy in fishing, okay? That I'm not a gatekeeper, okay? So I rail against the gatekeepers. I'm a libertarian in kayak bass fishing, I try to hold people to account. I try to call out the bullshit. I try to give the other people's perspective of what people are talking about on the street. Now, they're not going to walk up to someone at a Hobie event or a bass event and point the finger and say, hey, you guys need to do this. No, they're not going to do that because they live in friggin' fear of those guys. I don't. There are plenty of things in this life to fear, okay? There are plenty of things that will happen in life. Life will put you in a various number of situations that will bring fear to you. This is not one of them, okay? Fishing should never be one of them. You should be able to voice your opinion openly and be able to be, but I understand that's not the real world, Jay. Jay, that's not reality. We have Facebook. We have all the crap. Everybody's just a whiner. Yeah, that's the world we live in today, where your opinion gets diminished by someone who doesn't even know you, who doesn't have any respect for the sport, in my opinion, or the growth of their sport. They're just worried about themselves, beating their chest themselves. And Bass also has a great opportunity right now with Bass Nation and what they're doing with Bass Nation to actually grow the sport. But the problem is, if the gatekeepers don't get behind that, it's going to stall. We've seen it in our region. Where people that are gatekeepers didn't really get behind the transition that was going to take place in the state of Maryland for Bass Nation. And they dipped. I think they went to Delaware. Okay, you guys don't live in Delaware, but go ahead. Do whatever. But I think the same people run it. Both state and Bass Nation. So it's kind of okay, let's see how this works out. Pop the popcorn, sit back and relax. Why didn't y'all just come together and hash out the differences and just check your ego at the door and just be look, this is the future. No club affiliation. See, the problem is, again, gatekeepers, they have a club, they have a vested interest. They want to keep growing their club. They lose objectivity because they have an interest in it, as opposed to an organization or someone who doesn't have an interest, right? Being involved to help grow everything, right? And so when you require club membership and when you take that away, of course clubs aren't going to be happy about that, because they want members. They want to grow their membership. They grow their membership. They can grow their payouts. They can grab more sponsors. It's pretty logical. So it's easy to explain human nature that there was friction and stuff with Bass Nation clubs across, the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, in terms of how this was going to all work. Some clubs adopted the no club affiliation. All you have to do is fish an event. You look at Virginia. Virginia's probably has the easiest road of entry of any Bass Nation to get to a state championship and get to the Bassmaster Kayak Open Series Championship in Texas in 2025. You only have to fish an event and finish in the top 10. That's it. To get an invite to the state championship and then finish in the top 10%, I think. So it's like, and then other states are creating all this other stuff. It's like, it's not an equal playing field. Bass need to figure that out. It needs to be the same in every state. So everyone has an equal opportunity. But no one's talking about it. No one's talking about it. Okay? I'm just laying that out there. That's my hot take on Thursday, Bass. Do better. I love you, but you got to do better. For 30%, 35% of the kayak bass fishing community fish on rivers, not lakes. We buy river kayaks, not big water kayaks. Okay? That's the deal. So, hey, look. Shoot us another 1 or 2 events. Increase your events by 2 next year in 2025. Okay? Have 2 more events in 2025 and then add another 2 in 2026 and actually, have a little 60-40. 50-50 would be great, but I know I live in the real world. That's not going to happen. Okay? But let's get at 3 events, 3 of 7, 3 of 8. Okay? River events for people to help those people get access to go to the next level and fish where they like to fish, where their kayak is suitable. The technology that they have or don't have is on an equal playing field with other people, because a lot of this technology and motors and all that stuff, a lot of times it doesn't really come into play on some of these rivers if you schedule these rivers. Okay? And we can't schedule a river and then because of the timing of it, and then bail on it. Okay, like the New River got bailed on by Hobie, okay, after one time, it all comes, it's a river, and I get it, rivers are inconsistent, and that could be why a lot of this happens the way it happens. I mean, look, this is my opinion, okay, doesn't mean I'm right, okay, and you may disagree with me, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong, okay, and I understand, look at the weather we got right now, we got rising water everywhere. Okay, so if there were events right now, they'd all be getting canceled. It's not happening on your local lake. Okay, so go fishing on your local lake. That could be why there's more lake events scheduled than river events, because of just consistency and less impacts environmentally, due to weather and things like that, that can impact a river. So I understand and I get that. Again, I just think that after 4 years, we should see more rivers from bass. That's just my hot take. You may agree or disagree. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments. I just don't think that the kayak platform, in my opinion, and again, I could be wrong, it's just my opinion, I don't believe that the kayak platform was meant for Lake Erie, places like Lake Erie. Okay, I really don't. Or even Guntersville. I really don't. I think kayaks, if you look at that, were meant for rivers. Okay? Rivers and creeks, And hopefully we can recognize that we don't have to lose the purity of kayak angling by moving in the direction of tournament purists who just care about tournaments, who just care about putting on tournaments. And I get it, it's a bass tournament organization. I get it. But what does that do for the rest of us? And it's the rest of us that control the destiny of bass. If the same people keep going, it's great, but you're not growing. Okay? If you have 100 people at every event every single year, you're not growing. You're maintaining. Okay? So if we want to grow this sport together, we need to start including all people. We need to, first of all, stop bashing other organizations within the community, whether it be KBF or other regional trails or whatever. We need to support them because, again, it's a community, all right? And so people need to really ask that question. Who's on board with actually growing the community and who's on board with actually growing themselves in their own self-interests? That's the question that a summit of some of the top kayak bass anglers in the country, as well as the top podcasters. I'm not one of them, okay? There are dozens of freaking podcasts out there in the, if not 100, in the fishing segment and the kayak bass fishing segment that have far more depth of knowledge than me. Okay, those people should be brought in for that as well, in an open mic session, live streamed, where people can, with a moderator, where people from all over the country can ask questions of these organizations and these top anglers and all different kinds of topics that will help grow the sport. Isn't that what we're supposed to be about? Like, is that not what we're supposed to be about? It leaves me baffled. So when you look at the Bass schedule coming out in 2025, their schedule will tell you what Bass Kayak Series Open value.